Hi everybody and welcome back. I'm so glad you're with me today because we're going to talk about Thanksgiving, the time when we have friends and family over and enjoy each other's company. But before we get started, I apologize if there's an echo. I know we've been trying to work through the echo problem in this room. The problem is that there are so many hard surfaces in this house. We have granite and we have tile, and something you can't see is I have a huge window in front of me, and I think the window may be the biggest problem because it is producing a lot of echo. It just bounces sound. But we're going to work through that today, and I'm going to keep working on that problem with the echo. But I am going to go through a few side dishes that I really like to serve at Thanksgiving, because if your family and friends are like our family and friends, we have those who have a lot of food preferences and food allergies. And I mean, we have a vegetarian, a vegan, a pescatarian, and then I have one who doesn't even eat seafood at all. I have a gluten-free member, and I have a dairy-free member. So that only leaves a handful of dishes that I can serve. So I try to keep it very simple, and that's really great because it makes it easy to cook because you only use 2 or 3 items for each dish. And that's great for those of you who don't like to cook much. It's just an easy dish you can take and it looks great. Or if you're just learning to cook, it's a good way to get started because the easier the better. And that way you'll continue cooking and maybe move on to those wonderful casseroles that a lot of people like to serve at Thanksgiving, and I'm included in that. There are some great ones out there. However, a lot of people can't eat those because of their dietary restrictions, and in my opinion, if you serve too many casseroles, then you don't have any texture on the plate, and you have little scoops of mashed up vegetables, which is basically what a side dish like that is. Casseroles tend to be kind of scoopable. So these are texture dishes that only require a few ingredients, and I think you're going to find it easy because we are going to start very, very simple. I'm going to start with making broccolini, and if you like broccoli, you love broccolini. It has a little milder flavor and it looks really delicate on the plate. And then if you don't like broccoli, I have an ingredient that might change your mind. I'm preheating the oven for a dish that we're going to make in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and finish with our broccolini first. I use this broccolini that you can find in the produce section of your market, and it is washed and ready to use. You can put it in the microwave for about 3 to 5 minutes, and it's really good. However, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take it out of the package, and I'm going to boil it for about 10 minutes or so. And I'm going to put in 2 cups of water and start that to boil, and then just drop the broccolini in it, let it cook for about 10 minutes, and then take it out, and it'll be really tender. Now we're going to make some potatoes. The simplest potatoes you will ever make. You just take a baking dish and a little bit of olive oil. This is extra virgin olive oil, just enough to put on the bottom of the pan. You can put a little extra if you like that olive oil flavor. Wouldn't use butter because butter smokes, it gets to a high temperature, so I would stick with the olive oil. Then what I'm doing is taking these little tiny new potatoes. I bought about 6 or 8 per person because you don't need a lot of potatoes. If you think about it, when you go into a restaurant, you don't get a plate of potatoes. You get maybe a handful at the most, because you're going to have other dishes to eat, and then that's it. You're done. You just put it in the oven at 425 for about a half an hour. Check them after that. See if you might put a toothpick in them, see if they feel like they're done. If they're not, leave them in another 15 minutes. It's easy peasy stuff. This is going in the oven, and it's already at 425. And I'm going to leave it in there for a while, and then we'll get back to that. I'm going back to the broccoli. I boiled the broccolini for about 15 minutes because we like our broccolini a little more done, but if you like yours a little bit crunchy, I would just use the microwavable bag and cook it for that 3 to 5 minutes and save yourself a little time and trouble. Now I'm going to make a sauce to go over this, and it's optional because if you eat fat-free or dairy-free, you might not want to use this, but it's so simple that it's worth the try. The sauce. The sauce is going to be a surprise to you because all I do is cube Velveeta cheese, put it in the microwave, melt it, and if it's a little too thick, add a little milk, stir it up, and then microwave it a few more seconds, and it's great over the broccolini. If you are not a fan of Velveeta cheese, then I would suggest the mild cheddar. I get the shredded because I can just sprinkle it over the warm broccolini and it'll just melt on its own, and it is great. We've completed our first side dish. We have the broccolini that took 15 minutes to boil or 3.5 minutes to microwave, and then we are going to add the secret cheese sauce. It'll be your secret. And there we go. That looks delicious. So here we are. There's our potatoes with olive oil, and we're going to add a little bit of parsley. Now I suggest if you can find fresh parsley to use that because it just looks prettier on the plate and it tastes a little fresher, of course, than the dried parsley. But our grocery was out of the of the fresh parsley because I think it's so close to Thanksgiving that they have run through it and haven't gotten it back in stock. But let's see what this looks like on the plate. So I have, that's 3, 5, 6, there's 7 potatoes. If you have heartier eaters, then just buy extra potatoes because they are small, but that's plenty because we don't have the turkey dressing, we don't have the ham and everything else that goes with Thanksgiving on this plate, and we're already half full. This side dish is cooked apples. It's very, very easy and it's delicious. It's almost like having an apple pie without the crust. So it's pretty healthy and I just love it. Everybody I've ever served it to loves it, and it only requires about apples and 3 ingredients, and it's done on the stove. I use a skillet, not a skillet, but let me show you. Would that be a skillet? What would you call that? But anyway, that's what I use. What we're going to do is we cut up our apples, and these apples are not cut in any particular way. They're just chunks of apples, and I'm cutting this up and cutting the peel off, and I'm dropping the peel in my trash can. I'm not dropping it on the floor. It's going in the trash can. So what I'm doing is taking the peel off, and these are red delicious apples, but it really doesn't matter which apples you use. I've used several different kinds and it always turns out great. If you like a more tart apple, then use that tart apple. Red delicious or a little bit sweet. Some people would prefer others, and that's just fine because it's not necessarily just the apple you're tasting, it's all the other ingredients. So see, I just start cutting off the core of the apple, and it's not exact at all. And I usually will cook about 1 apple per person. So you know how many people you've invited, just buy that and you cook it up, and if you have any leftovers, it's even great the next day. But then after I've cut up all of the apples, then I put it in my pan with about 2 cups of water. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of these up, and then I'll show you the rest of the few ingredients that go in this. Well, I have all of the apples cut up into chunks. If you're a perfectionist, you can cube them nicely, but I tend to just cut them up any old way they come off the core. Then I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of dark brown sugar, but you can use light brown sugar. I've even used white refined sugar, whatever you have. None of this is an exact science, so you can make it your recipe. So I'm going to add that. Then I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter. This is Kerrygold butter. It's Irish butter. It's what I use most of the time. I'm not a fan of margarine, but if you are, then that'll be just fine as well. And see, I'm not making an exact measurement. I am just using a butter knife to just guess. But it's around 2 tablespoons. If you like things a little buttery, then add a little more. Sneak some more butter in there. And then remember I talked about apple pie spice and coffee grounds to make a nice cup of apple pie spice coffee. That was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. Well, this is where it comes in handy again. Apple pie spice, you can get it in the spice section. Now, if you don't have apple pie spice, you can use cinnamon and nutmeg, cloves, any of those spices that you find in an apple pie. And sometimes I will even use apple pie spice and then add extra nutmeg, which actually I think I might do that now because I just love the flavor of nutmeg. And it adds a little something special to it. If you're a clove lover, just drop in a few cloves. And then we're going to put this on the top of the stove and we're going to boil it until the water becomes thicker, and it will because it's going to cook down and the sugar is going to make it almost like a syrup. Our apples are finished and look at this, they're so soft and sweet, and we're going to add these to the plate. Your guests are going to love them. They smell delicious. You can smell the cinnamon and clove and nutmeg. That looks great. Now let's make green beans. I have purchased the trimmed and washed preservative-free green beans. They, as you can see, the ends of them are cut off. Now, if you have a farmer's market and you've gone and bought fresh green beans, use those. But I'm just trying to show you a few ways to save a little time. So we have the green beans and extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to put about 3 to 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil in the pan. And then I use garlic. If you have fresh garlic cloves, crush those up and use them. I'm going to say for this small amount, which says it serves 4, I would just use maybe 2 cloves because you don't want it to overpower you. And with this, it's just each little squeeze. I don't know if you've ever used this tube garlic before. This is the it's a stir-in paste. You can get the chunky garlic in the tubes as well. This is just the paste. So 2 little dollops of garlic. But if you have powdered garlic, use that as well. It all tastes pretty good. So I'm going to put the green beans in. And then we're going to put it on the stove. This is a different pan. It's a very flat skillet. And I'm going to put this on the stove and I'm going to start cooking this. I'm going to saute them for probably about 15 minutes and then we'll see how far along they've come. I think 15 minutes will probably do it. And here are our wonderful olive oil and garlic green beans. And I did cook these between 5 and 10 minutes because it just depends on how crunchy you want them. 5 to 10 minutes. And if you want to be extra fancy, add some almonds to the top. Let's try that. Oh my gosh, that's good. Thanksgiving isn't complete without sweet potatoes. So we're going to make some sweet potatoes, but we're not making it in casserole form. So the first thing I'm going to do is wash these sweet potatoes, and then you want marshmallows, and these are the larger marshmallows, not those giant ones, but just the kind of a medium size. And then we have the brown sugar again, and that can be light or dark brown sugar. We'll need some wax paper and butter. So I'm going to wash these and then we'll get started. I take my sweet potatoes and I roll them in the wax paper. Very, very simple. Remember, I'm keeping this simple, so this is about as simple as it's going to get on every dish. Down to putting them in the microwave. I'm cooking those 2 sweet potatoes for 11 minutes, but if your microwave cooks fast, I would go at maybe 8 minutes. Try that. You can always add a couple minutes. These are hot as hell, but they're done. And they're going to be delicious. I'm going to remove the wax paper. And if they're not too hot, I'm going to cut them. Okay, I've cut them lengthwise, and then we are going to add a dollop of butter, of course, to make them extra special. A little butter. Put as much as you want. Then we're going to put a little bit of brown sugar. And you're going to love that taste together. Then we're going to take our marshmallows. Open these for you. And we're going to take one. I'm using skewers. Remember, I use these for kebabs on the grill. Well, these I'm using for marshmallows. Now, if you have young children at home, don't let them see me do this, because they'll want to do it themselves and they'll want to do it all the time. So I'm going to take these over to my gas top stove. If you don't have a gas top stove, you can put these on the sweet potatoes and put them back in the microwave for a moment and they'll melt. They just won't have that brown toasty look on the outside. Look at those toasty marshmallows. And they're very hot, but it's so good. If you can get the perfect toasted marshmallow, you're doing great. And those marshmallows will melt a little bit more as long as they sit on those hot sweet potatoes, but don't they look delicious? And it is delicious. If you're entertaining this holiday season and you use one of these recipes, please let me know how it turned out for you. I'd love to have a comment from you, and I'd love to have a thumbs up if you like the video. And thank you for subscribing. Bye.